Hold on, girl. If we don't know one another, I'm Rachel, and I used to be a pro stock trader before I quit my Wall Street job because I realized that the system just does not work.
You're cute.
One of the things I want most is for us to come together to escape the matrix of the old system. So I often use decentralized tools instead and teach others how to use them too. So here I'll show you a decentralized technique that took less than 10 minutes to set up and maintain. In about 6 days, it made me almost $2,200, so I want to help you learn how to do this too. So I talk about these topics because I want us to transcend the dysfunction in the old system, and that's what our project Seeds is all about. One of the issues in the old system that Seeds works to transcend is this idea that it takes money to make money. If you need capital to try the strategy that I'm going to demonstrate in this video, or if you need it for literally any reason at all, please know that you can always use Seeds to ask for monetary help. That's literally why it exists. So the strategy we're going to use is called Liquidity Providing, or LPing for short. In order to LP, first you need to get some cryptocurrency. So in order to do that, we almost always have to buy cryptocurrency with fiat currency like the US dollar using a centralized exchange. To be clear, all centralized exchanges are bad in my experience, without exception. I'm literally pursuing a lawsuit against one right now because they ripped me off. But they're kind of a necessary evil right now because most of us do have to trade fiat currency like the GBP or the AUD or the CAD to get the cryptocurrency that we want to use. Examples of centralized exchanges include Coinbase, Binance, and Gemini. The key is to get your cryptocurrency off of centralized exchanges and into a self-custody wallet as soon as possible as a best practice. Examples of self-custody wallet include Coinbase's self-custody wallet tool, not to be confused with their centralized platform, and MetaMask. You know it's a self-custody wallet if you have exclusive access to the private key for that wallet, or it's mnemonic. If you don't have those things, then the wallet is not actually in your control and you don't truly retain custody of your money when you're using it. So once I purchased my cryptocurrency on a centralized exchange and moved it into my self-custody wallet, I can now connect my self-custody wallet to Uniswap, a decentralized platform, and create a position to LP. When you LP, you have to choose a specific liquidity pool, which involves a pair of 2 cryptocurrencies. I'm going to choose the wrapped Bitcoin Ether pool for reasons that I'll explain. You also have to choose a fee tier, and I'm going to choose the 0.3% option. When you LP, traders are paying you fees for providing the liquidity to execute the trades that they want to make. And this was super exciting to me when Uniswap first invented this solution in 2018 because nobody could figure this out before. So we were always stuck relying on a handful of, at least in the West, typically rich white men to provide the capital necessary in order for traders to make trades, which just made the wealthiest people even wealthier. But because we can now LP on decentralized platforms, what's super exciting in my opinion is that it's just way more democratic. Anyone who wants to can add cryptocurrency to those pools and start earning fees off of them instead of those fees going to people like this. If you want to maximize the fees you're earning, you want to choose a pool that has a high trade volume, which is a big part of the reason I selected this pool. And you also want to choose a fee tier that is performing well, because that's going to be the percentage in fees that you're earning as a liquidity provider yourself. But the fee tier shouldn't be so high that it deters traders from wanting to use that pool. I also chose WBTC/ETH because Ether and Bitcoin tend to move in tandem. They tend to be pretty correlated in terms of their price movements. This allows me to select a narrow price range when creating my position. Now, this is key because the narrower your range, the more efficiently you're leveraging your capital, aka the more in fees that you can earn. And if the two cryptocurrencies you choose tend to move together in terms of price movements, they're likely to stay in a narrower range for a longer period of time, earning you more money. The risk here is that if your range is very narrow, the price may go outside of it, in which case you're no longer earning fees. That's not that big of a deal right now though, because transaction costs are so low that you can simply remove your position and add it back in a different range whenever you want to do so. Now, in order to create my position, I also need to make sure I have the correct ratio of Bitcoin to Ether for the specific price range that I've chosen. Calculating this takes a little bit of math. I haven't found any online tools that help with this. Uniswap's user experience is bad, so it doesn't really help with this very much either. So I'm literally just using like Google Sheets to do these calculations. I'll put a link to the tool that I created to do this in the description in case it's helpful to you. If anyone knows of a better tool to help with this, please let me know. Once I'd made swaps so that I had the precise ratio of Bitcoin to Ether that I wanted for this position, I created my position and that was it. Okay, now I'm going to show you a demonstration. If you have any questions or feedback, please totally leave it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I also just recently recorded a live where I go into the strategy in more depth, so you should check that out too if you're interested and you want a little bit more context. So just this morning as I was getting up, I saw that this went out of range, which you can see here at the top in like yellowish orange. I literally checked it as I was still lying in bed and it was still in range then. It's probably not a very healthy practice. I should have like meditated first. But in any case, it was still barely in range when I looked at it like first thing this morning. And then it went out of range a little bit after. So we can see like how and why it went out of range here at the bottom. I'm going to toggle from Bitcoin here to Ether. So we can see the price in Ether per Bitcoin because I think that's just sort of easier. It's easier, at least for me, to grasp. So we can see that the minimum price, whenever I established this position, I chose 22.2611 Ether per Bitcoin and a max price of 23.3557 Ether per Bitcoin. But the current price is 22.2371 Ether per Bitcoin, which is below the min. And when it goes out of range, you're going to end up with 100% of one or the other of the two cryptocurrencies. So right now I have 100% Bitcoin in this position. Okay, so I'm going to remove the liquidity. I'm going to hit max, remove. It was just glitching and telling me I didn't have enough Ether to make this transaction, but I knew that I did. So if it's ever being janky like that, you can just reopen your wallet. I can't stress enough that like the user experience of these decentralized tools is still not good. And at Seeds, we need to improve our user experience as well. But the reason that we haven't has to do with not having the support that we need to get that taken care of, despite trying for a long time. This platform has $1 zillion, so like there's no excuse for it not being more intuitive to use. Okay, you can see that I removed the position. It's now closed. Something else that's annoying about the user experience is that it looks like it never existed. It doesn't tell me any information about how much was in the position, how much I added to it when I created it. So I typically screenshot these positions before I remove them. But you can at least see the range that you chose at the very bottom. So now I want to create a new position in a new range, and you can see that I do have some Ether in my wallet now because I claimed my fees, my $325 or so in fees, and some of that was paid in Ether. So now I have the gas fees covered to take care of this. Okay, so the pair I want to use is Ether WBTC. I want the 0.3% fee tier because this pool seems to pay the best in terms of trade volume and fee tier like combined. Going to look at the price range here in Ether because that's easier for me to understand. And then down here in this like super ugly graph, we can see that the gray line is the current price. And then these are the paddles that we can move to change the range that we're selecting. The pink mountain here reflects the amount of liquidity added at every price in that range by everyone who has ever added liquidity to this pool. So I'm convinced that it's likely that the price of Ether per Bitcoin is going to keep heading down because it's super near its highs right now. And let's actually look at that on the graph. So this shows you why I'm thinking that there's a likelihood that the price in Ether per Bitcoin may head down, which is why I want to skew my position in that direction so that I'm not going out of range as much if and when it continues to go down. I'm gonna move myself up here. So if we look at this graph, it actually shows us the price in Ether per Bitcoin over the course of the last year. And we can see that where we're at, where we were just at, was by far the high over the course of the last year. And now it's come back down, which is why my position went out of range. So my thinking is that it'll probably continue to come back down a bit because I think it's likely that Ether could outperform Bitcoin. And if Ether is going up in market value as compared to Bitcoin, that means that it's going to take less Ether per Bitcoin to have the equivalent price, which means this price will go down, if that makes sense. Side note, this shows that the entire pool has earned 45,300 US dollars in fees in the last 24 hours. And I was finding that with a position of this size in a narrow range, I was able to capture somewhere between like 1.1 to 1.5% of all of those fees, which is super sick. So I'm going to try to maintain that by continuing with a narrow range. So because I think it's probably trending down, I want to get as tight on top as I can. I think I'm going to even pull this in slightly further. So you can use these plus and minus buttons to adjust the range as well as the paddles underneath. Let's try this. See, like, I really wish it would tell me the current price numerically here, but it doesn't do that. And I'm going to make it less tight on the low side. So maybe more like here, which gives me a price range of a little bit more than 1 Ether per Bitcoin. And then down below, I have to take a look to see what the specific ratio is going to need to be in order to create this position. And this can get super annoying because I'm not aware, at least, of any tools that allow you to calculate this. Uniswap doesn't provide any help, so you just have to do it like in a straight up spreadsheet like I'll show you. And the ratio can change as you're making swaps to create the position. So sometimes you'll complete the swaps, you'll have your ratio, and then it'll change, and then you'll have to make another swap, which can ruin everything if gas prices are high. But thankfully, gas fees are way better now than they were in like 2021 when I first started doing these experiments, when Uniswap v3 first launched. So that's not such a big deal now in terms of the money spent, but it is still super annoying, and I wish there were a better tool for this. So if we look at this, we're trying to figure out the ratio. So we can see below that it auto-filled numbers that would be necessary for me to add if I were creating a position with 0.031 Ether, which is what I currently have in my wallet. But I want it to be the entirety of this. I want to put on like all $87,000 of this position. So that means I need to get way more of this into Ether because it's going to be what? Probably a 60-40-ish ratio, which means I'm going to need to trade a lot of this Bitcoin for Ether in order to create that position. This goes here. Okay, so over here, I'm going to put the total amount I want to add. So I want $47,537.86 in Ether, and I already have like $83 in Ether, 83.61. So what I want in Ether equals this minus 83.61. This is what I need to trade for. Now I have to go over here and figure it out, which is so annoying. 47,454. 47,454. We'll go with this because I still need a little bit of gas funds as well. Should probably actually be a little bit less. Because it's like $6 in gas. See what I'm saying? It'd be so great to have a tool that helped me calculate all of this. 47,454, and it just went up in value here. So that means my ratio just changed. It's so annoying. And it disconnected my wallet, which it just does sometimes for security, but like, why right now? So you can see this changed a little bit. 56.95 now. And 47.54. So I need 47,443 in Ether. 47,443. And we're going to go a little bit under so that I still save a bit for gas. We'll try this. Oh, the gas is cheaper. Yay, it's $2.72. I just realized I'm probably still not going to have enough Ether because I have to actually create the position. This is so annoying. So I'm going to have to move some from another wallet. And I don't really have any wallets with Ether in this MetaMask account. So I think I'm going to have to leave a little bit of Ether back. Let's see, in order to create this position. So you'll notice I just left this page with like the determined fee and the pair and the price range open while I did the swap like in another tab in Chrome so that I didn't have to come back and like retool this again. So to hold on to a little bit of ether, I'm just going to reduce this slightly. See how like imprecise this is? There's so much trial and error. And again, if anyone knows of a tool that helps with this, I'd love to hear about it. But I've never been able to find one and no one's told me about the existence of one. We'll just go ahead and do this. This says I need 588 in ether, and there's not enough here. So I have to reduce this a little bit further. Let's just do it like this. We need 588, so this needs to be 425-ish, a little lower. Submitting my transaction on the blockchain. And the transaction's complete. So if we go back, we can see that I now have a new position that is in range. And it did get $87,000 on there, which is, you know, the vast majority of the capital I was trying to add to this position. And we can see the range down here. I really want to have all my capital in this position. And we can see here that there's still $345 in Bitcoin to add and $28 in Ether to add. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the frustration of trying to figure out how to get as much of that added as possible, but I won't take you through that. But what I will do is I'll come back on here and show you how this has been performing later today. Okay, it's 12:41 a.m. Can you see that? It's mirrored anyway, isn't it? And I need to go to bed, but I want to just show you how this position is doing. So, okay, first I pulled up the TX hash on the blockchain, which is what happened earlier whenever I showed you that I created this position. It generated this. So you can see I'm going to refresh it. So I created the position about 12 hours ago, and I added that little bit of money that I couldn't get in there the first time, like after I ended the recording. So that whatever, a couple $100 was added as well. Here's the position. So you can see that it's currently at 35% Bitcoin, 65% Ether, and I have $336.31 in unclaimed fees. And you can see below that like what the breakdown in earned fees is in Bitcoin and Ether as well. So this almost went out of range earlier today. It got down to 98% Bitcoin and 2% Ether. So I was wondering if I was going to have to remove the position and then add it back, but it didn't go out of range. It stayed in range and came back here. And it hasn't really done much in the last hour or so. So it was kind of a slow day actually, but I'm super happy to see these earnings in about 12 hours. That's pretty good. Okay, back to the TX hash on Etherscan. So this is showing the transaction on the blockchain again. We can see that now it's 26 hours since I created the position. Refresh this to show you that the timing's legit. I wanted to wait to show you this to see if it would get above 500, and it just did like recently, and then it dipped back under and it came back up. So you can see that it hasn't performed as well in the last 14-ish hours as it did in the initial 12 hours after I first created the position. But I'm so grateful for this. Like, it's pretty sick, in my opinion, to make over $500 off of this cryptocurrency, you know, I was holding anyway in such a short span of time. So I'm so happy to see that this strategy is working this well. And this is actually the best return in a roughly 24-hour period that I've gotten so far since I started taking this approach actively. I haven't done this like in such a dedicated, consistent fashion in a few years because the gas fees, the transaction costs were too high. But now that they aren't, this is such a viable strategy. I see this working probably quite well for hopefully a good period of time. I mean, we're heading into like, there's a likelihood that cryptocurrency as a sector could reach new all-time highs by late 2025 if history is any indication. So I'm really excited about like the next 12 to 16 months in cryptocurrency anyway, but being able to use this strategy on top of receiving the benefits of just like holding cryptocurrency in general and trading cryptocurrency in a conventional way during this time. As I said, this is the best that it's performed for me in a roughly 24-hour period. And that's primarily because I went with an even narrower range than I'd been going with in the previous 5-ish days. So I think I can take this even a little narrower and that it'll still probably stay within range for at least a day or so. And then I can leverage my capital even more efficiently and make even more in fees. So that's what I'm planning to do next. This is the first that the overall position, including the fees, has been worth more than $90,000 since I started doing this. So I'm really happy to see that. That's exciting. And on top of that, so I have 501.64 here in unclaimed fees. And if we go and look at the actual pool itself, we can see here that Uniswap's user experience is shitty once again, because over here it tells us that there was $17.5 million in trade over the last day. Over here it says the volume was less than 14 million. So which is it, Uniswap? Like, how are you calculating each thing? It's really annoying. I'm going to guess that this on the left is the more accurate number. It looks like this thing on the right like isn't updating frequently. Maybe it actually updates every 24 hours or something. But here on the left, it's updating hour by hour. And if we click on the hour graph, we can see that there's only actually been a single trade in this pool in the last hour, and it generated a total of $133.58 in fees for literally everyone in the pool. So that's like all $236 million in the pool overall. So it's not even that active, like at all. And yet my position, which is a whole lot smaller than $236 million, like needless to say, has managed to capture a significant amount in fees. If we look at how it's done over the last day, and we use this figure, $17.5 million, $17.5 million times 0.3% in fees. So 52,620 is the total amount in fees earned over the last 24-hour period. If we're using this number, which I think is likely to be correct, the entire 236 million has earned 52,620 in fees in the last 24 hours. And again, I have earned now $503.42 of that total amount. That means I've earned nearly 1% of the total fees generated in this pool in the last 24-hour period myself. And again, that's using this number. If we use this number on the right, I would have an even larger percentage. But again, the number on the right isn't updating, so I'm less convinced that it's actually the correct figure. Say we look at how this has performed over the last month. So there's been nearly $846 million in total trade over the last month. If I multiply that times the 0.3% fee, that means this pool has earned a total of over $2.5 million in the last month alone. And if I multiply that by the percentage that I've earned in the last 26 hours or whatever, that's over $24,280 in a month. So we'll see what happens. This is already up to 514 since we've been talking. And I'm going to keep exploring the strategy and tightening up my range to see if I can do an even better job generating greater profits. But again, I'm so grateful for this, and I want to do my best to make sure that kind, generous people like y'all are aware of this as well, and have the tools you need to also execute this type of strategy so that you can get more benefit too. And if it resonates, I hope that you'll consider helping someone in need through Seeds. You will get Seeds cryptocurrency and things, because the whole idea is that in a kinder economic ecosystem, people that are generous should be empowered to build wealth because they gave.